Girls of Reddit, what made you go from maybe I would date him to no way I would date him? He told me he was excited about the possibility of a relationship with me, and couldn't wait to delete our individual FB profiles and create a joint couples one. Number. Hell no. I was a single mom talking to who I thought was a great guy. Then he dropped I don't think I could raise someone else's child. Which I understood. Followed by do you think your parents would adopt him? My son hold up. What the fuck? Number. I understand not being comfortable with raising a child that's not your own, but suggesting I'll just give him up for you? Fuck you dude. Fuck you. He told me he was in love with me the second time we hung out. Not to mention he used to call me in a fit of rage, sobbing profusely when his mother would cook him something he didn't fancy for dinner. Yeah, safe to say that fling went nowhere. Finally a thread for me. After flirting with me for weeks, he saw a picture of my sister and told me she was gorgeous and much prettier than me. He's still kind of flirting with me after that. In all honesty, she is prettier than me. Always has been. And I knew he would think it, but I never expected him to say it to my face. When I was 19 I had a part-time job. A guy I worked with was kinda cute. We'd hang out after work and play rock band, etc. He was nice. I thought we might kinda hit it off. Then one day he started telling me about how the Bush family and the royal family in England are all actually a race of lizard people and part of some giant conspiracy against humanity. So, yeah, I couldn't. So he was super into nerdy shit. Hell yeah, this could be awesome. Proceeded to quiz me on the most ridiculous shit to prove I was a real nerd. Fuck people like that. No wonder you're single. Edit. $1 inches. There you go you. Edit 2. For context, I was writing an essay about superhero genre tropes and the use of IMAX The Dark Knight Rises being the main text, and he starts asking me ridiculous questions like what brand of makeup did they use for Heath Ledger's Joker, who isn't even in TDKR. I told him if he had an issue with my essay, he could grade it with what he thought I should get and we would compare it with my actual grade. He gave me an E, I got an A. For real though, girls don't like nerd culture because we think it'll impress you. We like it because we're human beings with diverse interests, and we're getting real sick of you questioning everything we do say. Edit 3. I love how half of the replies are guys now trying to explain to me what it's like being a nerd. Is the irony lost on you? I met a guy at a concert and he seemed really laid back and funny at first, so I agreed to go on a date a few days later. I soon found out he had a serious one-upping issue. If he asked about my work day and I said it was really stressful, he'd say oh I'm sure it wasn't as bad as my day. Or if I said I think I overspent while clothes shopping, he'd say I paid $1,600 for new golf shirts today. I'm sure you didn't spend that. This went on about even the tiniest little things. The last straw was when I said I loved Frozen and I'd probably seen it a million times. He said in all seriousness, oh, I've seen it 1,000,001. After 4 dates I realized I absolutely cannot put up with someone constantly trying to outdo whatever I said. When I noticed how much he lied, it was practically constant. He would forget that he had already told me a different version of the stories he told me. Once he even fucked up telling me what nationality his parents were. The first time he told me his mom was from A and dad from B. Second time mom was suddenly from B and dad from A. Tried telling him that he could be honest with me and just tell me why he felt the need to lie like that. But he just got mad at me and told me more lies, so I eventually gave up and just went with it. I still get sad thinking about him. I just think he was incredibly insecure and he had absolutely no reason to. Oh man, I think I'm late to this, but I am super freckly, and halfway through our first date beer, he started in about how freckled women ought to be flayed, how hideous freckles are, and he wouldn't shut up. On and on about how ugly freckles are. So I paid my tab, thanked him for his time, and he started to full out sob, gasping for air, sobbing about how he thought I was perfect for him, and how sorry he was. He tried to get me to meet him in his car so he could take me to an abandoned parking lot and fuck me. So, no. I realized that I didn't want to date this gentleman when he confessed he wasn't a doctor. In fact, he volunteered for St. John's ambulance. The lie wasn't his fault, however, as I'd been talking to his mother on Plenty of Fish dating website and not him. She was pretending to be him to try and fix him up with women. Edit. My lack of punctuation. Sorry. PPS talk at one point had been quite fruity. Bleak $1 inches. Before our first date, texted me and told me that he told his mom he met someone. Okay. During our first date, spoke non-stop about how smart, awesome, compassionate etc. he is. When I told him I volunteered for an animal rescue, his response was a disgusted look and "oh, you're bringing stray to your home." After seeing that I was visibly pissed by that remark, he proceeded to tell me how he really liked dogs. Used to have a dog when he worked in Africa, took really good care of it, even take time off to take the dog to the vet, but unfortunately had to tie it in the yard when he had to escape in the night, but he made sure to leave it with some water, and about how he would really like to adopt a sick disabled dog now. It was hard keeping a straight face after that. There was no second date. There's this guy who was smart, educated and very ambitious. We went out together few times and it was going fine until he started criticizing me for the time I spend with my friends, and every time I wanted to go and see them, he acts he's depressed and needs to talk to me so I wouldn't see my friends and go see him. That was awful and childish. When I said I think I want to do something with computers, he said, "Have you heard of Microsoft?" Then he wrote Microsoft on a piece of paper and slid it across the table, and that was my careers interview over. He was good looking and superficially charming. We got along decently, and he wasn't actively mean or anything, so it took a while for me to realize that he was an awful guy to date. I did notice he wasn't very affectionate. I would buy him drinks and meals and shower him with compliments to make him feel better about his insecurities, but he never complimented me, paid for me, or said did anything particularly nice. The sex was also a lot of me giving him head and him never reciprocating. After we'd been dating for a few months, I was having a rough time and opened up to him about my fears and insecurities, and instead of comforting me, he told me that my insecurities were completely ridiculous and illogical and made me feel guilty for feeling bad. When I confronted him about it, he revealed that he doesn't believe in compliments or in comforting people because it encourages people to be insecure and doesn't fix the problem. It ended when he offered to make us breakfast. I ate a small plate of it and cleaned up everything for him, and he charged me $25 on Venmo. That's when I realized he may have actually been a sociopath. Called other girls ugly in an attempt to say I was pretty. That's just immature and rude. As talking to this guy when I was 18. I met him on a dating site. Lots of shit was weird, tons of red flags, but he was really sweet, I thought. Anyway, he was coming into my town for the weekend and he called me while he was driving. He asked me, "What's the weather like for my trip?" So I told him what our local forecast was looking like. In the most demeaning and abusive tone I've ever been spoken to by a man. He goes, "No, how will the weather be for my trip?" I was obviously confused and he became even more agitated. Asked me if I was stupid. Then, eventually hung up on me because I became defensive. He called me back a while later and apologized but told me to never speak to him like I did again. And if we're gonna work out, you've got to learn to be able to do what I ask. Apparently, he'd wanted to know what the forecast was along his driving route for the entire 4-hour drive to my town. I'm not a fiend meteorologist, so I ended up meeting him despite my gut instinct not to. At that point, there were relatives with me and aware of what was going on. I was 18. I understand the decision was stupid. Let's move on, please. He begged me to go for a ride with him to the gas station. I refused. Had I consented, I definitely would have been. No doubt. He ended up leaving after making plans for a date for the following afternoon. 20 minutes later he had deleted his profile on the site we met and we never spoke again. Thank God. Met a guy abroad. He and his friend, and me and my friend were the only guests from our country. We clicked. Had this super romantic cliche summer fling. Met back home. Turns out he legit held the belief that women are less than men because women are not prepared to apply themselves the way men are, and he had never met a woman as intellectual as himself before. Yeah, okay, thanks, but no thanks. It didn't last. Met up with this dude at a bowling alley and he proceeded to act like an obnoxious ass after downing a few drinks. He had already killed it at this point, but it gets better. The plan was to crash at his place and I kept with it because I figured I could wait out this one horrible meeting and didn't really want to make the hour drive back home that night. When we get there I find out he lives with his parents. Nothing wrong with that, but what was wrong was that he didn't tell them I was coming over, so he had to sneak me in. This guy is sloppy drunk at this point and proceeds to strip down to his underwear once we get to his room. Tighty whities BTW, in case any of you were curious. He finds some old pizza left over in a pizza box in his room and lays in bed eating while he's dropping it all over himself. He finally passes out and I'm playing on my phone debating on whether or not I can leave quietly enough to not wake his parents because I don't wanna be mistaken for a home intruder or some shit. But his room is a disaster and I'm not sleeping on that floor and I'm sure as hell not getting in his bed. While I'm mulling over my options in my head, this dude gets up, sleepwalks to the corner of his room, whips his dick out and pisses all over the wall and the floor. He turns around like he's going back to bed, but wait, no. He just lays down in the floor in his own piss. I decided it was definitely worth leaving at that point and made it out without waking anyone up. The guy was so pissed I had just bailed and couldn't comprehend why I wanted nothing to do with him anymore even after I told him what he did.